Hey everyone, it's Josh Andrew here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Conversations with Josh Andrew. We're all about leadership, having meaningful conversations, and getting just a little bit better every day. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Your support helps us reach more people and continue bringing your great content. Thanks for listening. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's get into this week's episode. Everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Conversations. This week, we're going to talk about branding and communication in 2025. This is going to be specifically targeted towards church leaders, marketers in the church, creative directors in the church. I do believe this applies to anybody, whether you are a church leader, whether you're a Christian, whether you are any sort of marketer or creative. I believe this is going to apply to you a ton. With that being said, though, my context is obviously I'm a church leader. I've been a church leader for almost 10 years now. With that being said, I've also been in the marketing world for a very, very long time. I have owned agencies. I have worked with nearly over 300 businesses on their marketing, on their creative strategy. I've been a creative director. Right now, I'm still doing creative direction for multiple different companies. And again, I just believe that the church should have the best storytelling. I believe the church should have the best communication, internal and external. So I'm just going to propose to you, I'm going to submit to you a few thoughts here around this concept of marketing and branding and communication. And going into 2025, this will come out in the week of November. And I just want us to remove any perceptions or any ideas on what even marketing, branding, communication is. Because if I'm being honest, I can get really, really frustrated really easy towards us church marketers, us people who create for our local churches. I think something that we miss often is the fact that we are created by God and we are created to create. Something within that, though, something that has been missed, in my opinion, is, to be honest, the creative nature of the church just tends to be pretty mediocre. I think we're always behind, we're always copying other churches, other brands to make ourselves have a perception online. And I just think we should have the best content. I think we should have the best communication, and we should have the best design and graphic design and branding. So I really want us to remove any perceptions going into the next 25 minutes. I am going to give you 7 thoughts that if you apply these, I promise you, your content's going to go to the next level. Your marketing is going to go to a next level. This truthfully will transform the way your marketer, your creative director thinks about church. And if you're not the creative director of your church, send this to him or her, because this will challenge them. Absolutely. So number 1, we need to think of branding as a belief system. The modern church brand is no longer just a symbol or a name. It embodies a shared belief system that unites people. So what am I saying here? The brand is not the pastor. The brand is not the church name. The brand is not the leader who is a good communicator. The brand is a belief system that we all have a shared belief around. You could obviously assume what that means. So in 2025, successful church branding centers around a collective identity rooted in hope, compassion, and community rather than being about individual leaders or figures. It's about offering a message that says, hey, here we find hope together, creating a space where people feel seen, heard, and connected. This approach shifts the perception of the church from an institution to a community movement that resonates deeply with individuals searching for what? Meaning and support in uncertain times. This branding effort just must communicate a shared, steadfast purpose, inviting others to find their own place in the church's story. Something that we do pretty bad, in my opinion, is inviting people into the story of your brand. And again, the church is so much more than just a brand, but we need to think of it in this context so we can all grow and learn. This is a brand. Your church is a brand. Everything that you're creating, there's no set. You can't say we're not a brand. You're either a bad brand or you're a good brand. You have great branding. You might have great branding, but you have a terrible brand. Because why? Nobody actually has a shared belief system in what you're saying. Here's an easy example, by the way, to find what that statement is. whether that's we find hope together, there is love present here, you are going to be challenged, whatever sentiment around that is you as a creative director, if I took your website, if I took your social media, I took all of your content, I took all of your blogs, all of your emails, all of your internal communication, all of the things that you think about when it comes to your church, consolidated it all into one word, and the whole city was going to either like or dislike your church based on that one word, what would that one word be? To me, that is getting around an actual belief system. Because to be honest, a lot of us have impure motives. A lot of us have wrong strategies that we think works because we look at 10 to 20 Instagram accounts that are growing and thriving, and we go, I need to do what they're doing to grow our account. Okay, so you can grow your account. That doesn't mean that you have a brand. That doesn't mean that people actually care what your church has to say. Something that we have to consistently remind ourselves is nobody cares. The only people that care about your messaging, the only people care about your event that you're having is the people who are already bought into your brand, bought into your church. If that is your goal, then keep doing what you're doing. Keep inviting people to services, invite people to events, post all the things that should have been an internal email on your Instagram, because your goal is just to continue to reach the people that already are a part of your church. But if you're trying to reach new people who don't care or don't even know you exist, you need to have a common belief system, and you need to make it approachable, and you need to have it fill the filter lens of truth. So again, Jesus didn't have an Instagram account. The church in Acts didn't have a website. So we can't just constantly say, well, what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus didn't. Jesus did not have an Instagram, but he did have a strategy to reach people, to heal people, to connect with people. The strategy was what? He met them where they were at. So when we go online and we share content or we create your sermon clips that you love, those things we have to ask ourselves, is this meeting the target audience where they're at? Most of the time, in my opinion, the church Instagrams that I see, you're not meeting your target audience where they're at. You're meeting other pastors or church leaders where they're at, because our whole content strategy is to be impressive and interesting, not impressed and interested. I live in Central Phoenix. I live in downtown Phoenix. I want to be interested and impressed by the sentiment of my city, the sentiment of my neighborhood, the sentiment of the businesses, the entrepreneurs, the creatives in my city, so I can learn from them and understand, all right, this is the filter or the lens in which we need to create content so that we can meet them where they're at. I'm not saying don't live in absolute truth. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying the style and the strategy and the messaging of your content should always be through the lens of meeting people where they're at. So you absolutely need to think of your brand as a belief system. Number 2, the power of storytelling and perception. Storytelling is the most powerful tool for drawing people into your congregation, to your friend group, to your business, to insert whatever. It is honey on the lips. Your story is honey on the lips. So for us, what's super important is for us to have a story, to have something worth sharing. And something that I've had to learn, it was 2020 that I started to chew on this, was, do I actually have something to share? Like on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. Did I actually have something to share? And by the way, it's okay to say no. You don't just have to post to post. And for you as a creative running your social media account for your church, you don't have to post. Don't feel the pressure to post. Don't feel the pressure to create. Us as creatives, when we have that, we end up making really, really bad decisions or really, really bad content. So when we think about our story, it is honey on the lips. What does that mean? It is sweet and irresistible. The church's story must resonate with the human experience, mirroring the uncertainties, challenges, and moments of clarity that everyone encounters in life. Each person's journey with faith is unique, shaped by personal perceptions and life experiences. Churches, you and myself should recognize that faith is often perceived differently by each individual, much like how each parent sees their child uniquely. Crafting narratives that are reflective towards this diversity is going to help you and help individuals see the reflections in the church messaging. Again, our purpose, our mission is to create in which that somebody can see themselves in the messaging you're using, in the story you're using. Newsflash, leader, that's why nobody is following you, is because they can't see themselves in the vision you're sharing. They can't see themselves in the story you are sharing. It is not honey on the lips. So again, it needs to reflect the church's message, making the church feel more accessible and relatable. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of the unrelatability and the unaccessible churches or church content or pastors or leaders. We have to be accessible. We have to be relatable. I understand that we're supposed to stand out. We're not supposed to blend in. I'm not going to blend in. I'm not. I'm a one of one. I'm designed uniquely, and so are you. So the goal is not to blend in, but the goal is to be relatable. How do you be relatable when you don't blend in? It is having commonalities and being able to share the full story, which that goes back to vulnerability and honesty, which a lot of people don't want to do. And again, we just got to be honest with ourselves. Why do I not want to be vulnerable? Because why? There are people that follow me or that I follow that I don't want them to know my dark corners. I don't want them to know the things I'm going through. I don't want them to know because that they might subconsciously judge me or disqualify me from my position. But the reality is if you're honest and you are relatable and you are accessible as a leader, and again, remove yourself even out of this story as a brand, if you are accessible and relatable, people are going to be bought into that brand or that person. This approach, again, to storytelling acknowledges the mysteries that lie outside human control and invites people into a collective story without demanding uniformity of interpretation. So a couple huge thoughts here. And again, I just said this. We have to allow storytelling to have a mystery element to it. Everything about your brand should have a hint of mystery. Why? Because if people can see 100% of what they're seeing online or on your website, there's no reason for them to show up. There's no reason for them to follow you. If you think about just as a creator, as a profile, there's no reason why they should follow your Instagram, because the messaging you tell on yourself on Instagram, or you tell on yourself on your LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever profile, or not even just your social media. You as a person tells on yourself because it's all about you. It's all about your growth. It's all about your numbers or momentum. I'm telling you what, it is really easy to have an ego as a brand or as a church leader to say, I have a church of 10,000. What isn't as cute to put on Instagram is to quantify the amount of people you serve in your city who don't go to your church, or the value you add online to people who aren't Christian or who don't go to your church, who live in your city and are following you from a distance because they see something on your life that they go, man, I don't know about I'm going to go to his service, but I want to get coffee with him. I want to hear his story. I want to understand what is so different about them. That thinking right there is mystery. Because again, it's outside the human control and invites people into a collective story. Without, like I said, demanding uniformity. We're not asking for uniformity. Unity is not uniformity. I'm not asking you to blend in. I'm not asking you to dress like me. I'm not asking you to communicate like me. What I'm asking you to do is to be yourself and to be authentic. Because again, John Maxwell said this 1,000 times and you've heard it. People would rather follow somebody who is real than right. You don't always have to be right all the time. You don't have to always be put together all the time. People honestly will follow you if you have a mystery element. And I'm not saying hide your secrets. I'm not saying hide your life. Honestly, I'm saying you don't have to be everything to everyone. Neither does your brand. Neither does your storytelling. Neither does your whole brand in itself should have a mystery element, because why? People are interested in being bought in and seeing themselves in the story of your church. A lot of times, in my experience anyways, is you don't make content or you don't design your brand in a way to involve people in it. The brand or the design is curated around a personality of a leader. In last week's episode, I'm telling you, that is so 2020 and previous. I'm telling you, that's not a thing. If you think you can grow your church because of your personality or you're a good preacher, it's not it. It's gone. I'm telling you, that is an old way of thinking. And I'm telling you, the horse is dead. Get off that horse. You're not going anywhere with it. Your personality doesn't sell anymore. Your personality doesn't put people in seats anymore, to be honest, because people have a filter. They're already walking into our churches. They're already going to our social media pages with a perception of the church. The church is judgmental. The church is hateful. Most of the time, anyways. I'm not saying I believe that. I believe the church is perfect and beautiful and vibrant and life-giving and life-altering when the Holy Spirit is the goal. When Jesus is the message, it can change anyone at any time. And when it's not about that, what ends up happening is we get so married to methods or married to storytelling and perception, by the way. Perception is reality to some people, and we should not be trying to control perception. If people get into leadership and they find out you're a completely different person than the person that they met in the hallway, that's not healthy. That's not a clear sign that you're doing something right. It's a clear sign that you're insecure and broken. So, number 3, values evolve through crisis. We all have heard the 2020 stuff, the COVID stuff, all that. All right, we're almost 5 years out of that. We got to stop using that as an excuse not to grow, an excuse not to be healthy. But we need to understand as a congregation, as a unit, as a team, core values like compassion, resilience, integrity are often forged or strengthened in times of crisis. See, crisis exposes you. Crisis reveals what type of man or woman of God are you going to be. Values in the church, by the way, have a life cycle. Truth does not have a life cycle. Values do, evolving as they respond to the changing needs and challenges of the community. So the ethos of reputation over revenue and people over profit becomes especially significant in 2025. So what is that? What did I just say? Reputation over revenue and people over profit. Okay. How does that apply to the local church? Skepticism right now towards institutions is high. Skepticism towards the church is high. So how do we combat that? We stop thinking about revenue, not just money, by the way. I'm talking about church growth. I'm talking about just manufacturing momentum in your organization. How about we just focus on being true to ourselves and true to the values that we're committed to this season of life, this life cycle, and people over profit. People over performance. People is the only reason why you should be in ministry. The only reason why you should be going up on Sunday morning to a platform is to serve people. By the way, if that is not your motive, you have a life cycle because Jesus died for his bride. He's not asking you to. He's asking to pick up your cross daily, absolutely. But he died for his bride, so he's very opinionated, and he loves his bride. So for us to think that we can use people to grow our platform, use people to grow our personality, and to get us into the right rooms to connect with the right people, I'm telling you, that has a life cycle. We should be putting values at the forefront, the church establishment itself as a stable, trustworthy entity focused on community well-being over financial or personal gain. This principle allows the church to connect deeply with people seeking authenticity and compassion, particularly in difficult times. This last year has been tough for people. We have to be open and honest with that. We have to be more listening than talking. We have to listen to understand, not listen to respond. So by taking these values visible in actions and decisions, the church crafts a narrative of resilience that the community can trust and rally around. If people in your city who know about your church ask themselves and ask their neighbor, is your church known for its resilience and its trust? If it isn't, there's obviously a clear tell sign that we're focusing on the wrong things. We have to be resilient. That there are going to be tough times. There are going to be opposition. There's going to be things that we cannot control. There are things out of our control, but how do we respond in those moments? And then can we be trustworthy? Can we be trusted with people's hurts, habits, and hangups? Can we be trusted with people's dreams and visions? Can we be trusted with what God has put in our hands? Can God trust us with what he put in our hands? That is absolutely imperative. And what I like, again, going back to the point, Crisis reveals the values that are actually in your organization. Because it's one thing to have values on your wall and website. It is another thing to get exposed on what you actually value. Because again, by the way, it's a pretty clear example of what you most value. Look at your budget. Your budget tells on yourself of what you actually prioritize. Literally list it out from number one to the things you're not even spending money on that you want to or somebody on your team is desiring. That linear path right there is your priority list. And I'm not having opinions on that. I'm having opinions on the way we love people, the way we treat people, the way we care for people. So values are exposed during crisis. Last couple here. AI in the church, 2025. Everyone asks me about AI. There are micro businesses within the church ecosystem that are AI. The company I work for just acquired an AI company. I think for me, we have to just think of it as it is a new way to extend our reach, personalized communication, and streamline processes. But it is, again, it must be used thoughtfully. You have to be thinking about how you're using it, how you're integrating it into your church. AI can help create connections that feel intimate by allowing for more tailored and immediate interactions. Yet it should enhance the church's story rather than automating or diluting beliefs. So if it's not enhancing your story, there's no reason to have it. By using AI as a means to simply communicate and reinforce key messaging, churches can make their stories accessible for a wider, more diverse audience, including those who may have never set foot in a traditional church. In essence here, AI can help create a digital space for community building, amplifying the church's message without compromising the authenticity or depth in its story. Something that is just so profound to me is utilizing tools and not having the tools use us. So again, just use common sense. I think sometimes we over-spiritualize common sense things, but then most of the time when it's spiritual, we just apply common sense. And for me, I'm all about AI. We should use it. We should use it to make our lives simpler, to automate things, to simplify everything we're doing. Simplicity, I promise you, will always win. If you want a scalable business, by the way, help solve one problem and make it simple. It's KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. I'm not calling you stupid. I'm not calling me stupid. That's just a saying. But again, we just need to keep things more simple, and we need to not instantly assume that it's the devil. AI is the devil. Says who? Says who? The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't talk about AI, by the way. The Bible doesn't talk about technology. The Bible, in its essence, had technology in the Old and New Testament. There were things that were so technological advanced. Absolutely. And by the way, the church was always a part of the innovation process in technology, in advancement, the printing press. You go all the way back. The church has always been a part of innovation. The problem, and I'm submitting this to you, is we love the word innovation, but we're not actually innovating. We're stealing ideas that the world's already doing. We're stealing their ideas. We're just going to somebody who's not Christian. We're taking their idea and we're calling it a Christian blank. It's a Christian AI app. It's a Christian song. It's a Christian brand. No, it's just a song. It's just a brand. It's just an idea. It's just an app. We don't always have to use the word Christian in front of that. Because to me, a Christian is a human being who gave their life to Christ. So when you're talking about your apps and your businesses and your music that you listen to, it's just music. By the way, this is a side tangent here. There's no such thing as Christian instrumentals or worship instrumentals. Worship in that context is music. It's the songs. I can take a Kendrick Lamar beat and put Maverick City lyrics over it, and that is now worship. Because why? It's the lyrics. Instrumental is just music. It doesn't mean that it's demonic or bad. It's just music. Sometimes we can get so hyper fixated because honestly what it is, it's just a sign of insecurity because we don't understand something. So we can easily put a label on it to make ourselves feel more comfortable. But what you're doing is just dividing people. You're creating division in your city. You're creating division in your local church because you don't understand something and you're not asking the right questions to understand it. You're just assuming things. So when you put blanket statements like, oh, it's demonic, and it's like, well, that's a cop-out. It's the same thing as when you say, God told me. I would submit to you, never say that unless you're just quoting scripture, because it's a cop-out. No, just say, I believe God is speaking to me about, or I believe this is a reality in my life. Don't use the God card. That was kind of a tangent, but again, use AI as a storytelling tool. Last three things here: embracing distinction and authenticity. Recognizing what makes the church unique is essential to maintaining its relevance and appeal in a crowded cultural landscape. Churches should not shy away from acknowledging their struggles and challenges. Don't shy away from it. Don't run away from it. Run into it. Transparency about pain points and difficulties, whether institutional or societal, fosters a sense of authenticity, helping to build trust within the community. By acknowledging its imperfections, the church humanizes itself, inviting others to join in a shared journey of growth and resilience. This approach ensures that the church's message remains genuine and relatable. Are you genuine and relatable? Is your Instagram genuine and relatable? Is your website genuine and relatable? Is it? Is your Facebook ads, are they relatable? Are they genuine? Or are they just relatable and not genuine? Positioning it as an authentic source of hope in an era that increasingly values transparency. If you want the word of 2025, it's going to be transparency. People want transparency. People want authenticity. And by the way, people want distinction. People want that. Every single brand, every single person you follow them because they are distinctly different than their peers. And I'm not saying the church should compete against other churches, but you need to find your unique insight in your city, in your market, and use that distinction as a method to reach the specific people God gave you. Because, by the way, God gave you that thought, that download, that distinction so that you can apply that to the pain points of your city. And like I said, transparency is going to be everything. And in the cultural context right now, there is more division than ever. There is more disunity inside the local church, in my opinion, than ever. People are more at each other's throats. People are heresy hunters on social media. People have these whole brands and personalities built up of things that they don't even go to a local church. They're not even submitted to a pastor, and people follow them and trust their word. And what happens, though, is we make podcasts where we talk about it from our pulpits or our platforms as they are the problem. Well, that's what happens when the church gets behind in the creative process. We're 10 years behind content. So what happens is other people who learn about it and apply it, they build platforms and people get bought into it because everybody else is doing it. And again, we would call that innovation. It's not innovation. You're just taking an idea and making it better, which is great. But again, we have to utilize our distinctions and we have to utilize authenticity. Okay, last two thoughts here. Simple, non-negotiable messaging. Okay, right now we have a globalized and digital world. Simplicity in communication is vital. The church's core message should be easy to understand and resonate universally. A streamlined and functional logo, symbol, or slogan can encapsulate this message, serving as a visual reminder of the church's identity and purpose. So can people tell your mission, vision, values, identity, and purpose based on your logo, based on your website? Simplicity wins. By avoiding overcomplicated language or jargon, the church can focus on conveying an accessible message that speaks to the heart of what it stands for. Your content right now is speaking to their head or their hands, what they need to give to you, what they need to do for you. You're not speaking to their heart. This clear, non-negotiable message ensures that the church's core mission and values are communicated effectively, allowing anyone, regardless of background, to understand and feel welcomed by the church's presence. So what am I saying? Simple messaging is everything. Simple branding, simple social media, simple websites, simple services. Everything about what people want right now is simplicity. Because why? They're already anxious. They're already overwhelmed. They're already overstimulated. They're already oversaturated with content. So our lens should be, how do we create simplicity in our messaging? Last thought here, legacy-focused vision. For churches facing challenges, it's essential to work with a long-term vision in mind, thinking about the story they want to tell when the crisis is over. By planning with this legacy and focus, the church can stay resilient, holding to the message of hope and faith that will endure beyond current hardships. So if you're going through something, if you're as a human or as a church, think about prophetically, what's the story I'm going to tell when this season's over? What's the story we want to tell to the world when we overcome this problem? Now, reverse engineer that and work backwards. Working backwards from this intended legacy, the church can create a narrative that not only addresses present needs, but also paves the way for future growth, ensuring it remains a source of stability and encouragement. This vision anchors the church's efforts, ensuring its message stays consistent and forward-looking. If you want to be an influential person, if you want to be a person of influence, you're going to go through things. You have to have legacy in mind. You have to think about when this story's over, when this journey is over, when I am no longer in the picture, what's the story that I want to tell? And work backwards from that. Legacy is everything. In summary, the last wrapping up here, the church of 2025 should prioritize a brand that communicates shared values, humanizes itself through storytelling, adapts technology thoughtfully, and maintains a consistent message that resonates with your neighborhood. By doing so, you can continue to serve as a beacon of hope and belonging in an ever-evolving world. If you want to be relevant, stop thinking about yourself and serve the people that God has entrusted you with. I appreciate each and every one of you so much. And again, I just believe the best is still ahead. The better days are ahead for the local church. The better days for you are still ahead. If you can, subscribe on YouTube, maybe leave a review on the podcast. It would mean the world to me. We will see you next week.